What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I am here for my preview video for the Raiders game on Sunday. Um, yeah, there's a bit. I'm gonna get into more of my thoughts towards the end, but let me just say that the Raiders have been playing really good football the first couple weeks, and with the way that we got our asses handed to us and the O-line looked like complete shit, Tua getting hurt, not being in this, game. I've been going back and forth all week on whether or not I think we can win it. I'll give my score prediction, like I said, and get more in depth towards the end. But for now, look, I'm going to give them an opportunity, man. I'm going to give this Dolphins team an opportunity. Look, originally before the season started, before preseason and everything, right? Because this team earned a couple wins from me prior to the season starting in preseason. I originally had them at 6 wins. I'm keeping it real. Prior to the preseason, they earned 3 wins from me over the course of the offseason with their performance, with bringing Xavier Howard back, Tua looking really good, etc., etc. Well, also part of that was me thinking that the run defense would be better as well, which hasn't been the case. But so they earned a few, and one of the games that I changed to a win was the Vegas game, the Raiders game. So I did have it as a loss, but I did originally that was one of the games I changed. But like I said, I mean, especially with the developments and, Tua not being in this game because he's obviously out with the ribs, this is a tough team, man. I mean, they've been generating some of the highest pressure in the league up to this point. I mean, we'll get into their league standings and stuff too, but like, it's going to be a tough game, man. But I think, I'm going to give them a chance, and I'm probably, or I am going to like I said, I'll do my exact score prediction at the end, but I am going to predict a win. It's going to be a hard fought win. It's not going to be super high scoring, and it's going to be really close. But if I'm keeping it honest with you, and if I'm keeping it real, my instincts say that it's going to be another long day for the Dolphins, and we're probably not going to win this game. It's in Vegas. Derek Carr is going to be playing. Josh Jacobs is going to be out, but they have serviceable running backs behind him, and that's not their strength anyway. So, and our run game sucks. So our run defense sucks. So if they do run the ball, they'll probably have some opportunities. So, but anyway, let's go ahead and jump right into this. Let's get into the details. We are going to start with the injury report. So Tua's obviously out, which is super unfortunate. Jesse Davis, Grant, Emmanuel Ogbah, Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, all important people in, various different aspects, even if you just want to consider Jakeem Grant a return specialist. But they all should be available for the game. They did have some, there was some limited participation throughout the week, but they all should be a go. Unfortunately, though, and look, the Dolphins have said that they're probably going to do some shakeups on the offensive line. But from what we've been told and what we know, the only changes that they're going to make are that they're actually going to bench Solomon Kinley and put Liam Eichenberg in there. So from what we can tell and from what we've been told, the media, what they've been told, et cetera, it looks like the offensive line is going to be Austin Jackson, Eichenberg, Dieter, Hunt, and Davis, which it's such a disaster, man. But anyway, let's continue on. So just wanted to throw that out there. Now, if you see, the Raiders have a ton of guys on their injury report. Most of them don't have game status designations, which means they should be expected to play. But Roderick Teamer, one of their safeties, 2 of their safeties, Dallin Levitt is also out. Josh Jacobs is doubtful, so he probably won't play, or if he does, it'll be very few snaps, but probably not. The biggest one, though, is Richie Incognito. Josh Jacobs is a big deal because that would make their run game, more effective, but they're not really a running team anyway. And they do have serviceable running backs, but Richie Incognito is pretty significant. Not that we've proven to have much of a pass rush, But, you know, maybe there's an opportunity there for somebody, so we'll see how that plays out. But Derek Carr is going to be playing, and he's been playing at a very high clip, throughout. And look, they beat the Ravens in week 1. They beat the Steelers in week 2. So, you know, this team is not, you know, a slouch by any stretch of the imagination. So, real quick, though, I do want to jump into the depth charts. So, you know, and do some comparisons. So obviously we talked about our offensive line. I think that is a disaster and has proven to be a disaster to this point. Now, if you look at the Raiders offensive line, so they have Colton Miller, Richie Incognito, who's probably not going to play. So I'm guessing John Simpson then is going to go in his place. But Andre James, Jermaine Illuminor, who the Dolphins had, and he's apparently he's been rated like a top 5 right guard in the league through the first 2 weeks. So, you know, not only do the Dolphins have a shit offensive line, but they had a guy who's currently rated in one of the top players at his position through the first couple weeks of the season. They had him in camp and they had him in the building and they released him. He was one of the first guys that they cut in the first round of cuts. So they're terrible at their evaluation. And then Alex Leatherwood, obviously their first round pick. Look, I got to keep it real, man. You know, in the little team mashup that I've been doing in these videos, I'm going to take their offensive line over ours. They're way more proven, and I trust them over ours. Now, let's take a look at wide receivers. Henry Ruggs, Zay Jones, solid there. Brian Edwards, Hunter Renfrow, Willie Snead. These guys have been pretty showing out, man. And they're at, you know, we'll get into the league standings, but they're at the top of the league in total yards and passing yards and stuff like that. So they're nothing to shake their head at. And then if or shake your head at, and then if you look at our wide receivers, we have Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, Jalen Waddle, Will Fuller, Albert Wilson, Jakeem Grant, Matt Collins. And look, man, I mean, on paper, our wide receivers look pretty good, but so many of them are injury prone and hurt, and, you know, and then they're dropping passes out there, and and the coaching staff isn't even, you know, using them properly. So it's like, now Will Fuller is coming back this week or whatever, so we'll see how that plays out. But I gotta keep it real with you guys. I'm gonna have to take their wide receivers over ours too, man. Like, it's sad to say, bro, but like, but part of that obviously too is, you know, the production over the first couple weeks. I mean, our guys haven't shown shit. And so, you know, excuse me. So, you know, I don't know. It's just super disappointing. And this is part of the reason why, though, too, why I said, look, if I'm keeping it real, man, I think the Raiders are probably going to win this game, especially being a home game for them. But I did change this game, and look, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to give them an opportunity to prove me wrong here. I mean, they did prove me wrong against the Patriots, although it wasn't a very, particularly great performance, and they walked out of there by the skin of their teeth, right? The offense still, and they only had the 2 drives, weren't very good. The defense, has its weaknesses. Raekwon Davis isn't going to be there, so it's scary. It's scary. Anyway, tight ends, Mike Gesicki, Adam Sheen, Durham Smythe, Sathan Carter, Hunter Long, and then you take a look at their tight ends, Darren Waller, who we've had a problem with, Foster Moreau and Derek Carrier. They've been having some production as well. And, we'll see. Maybe Eric Rowe can fucking I mean, look, he had good coverage last time, but Darren Waller's Darren Waller, man. And so, I'm going to have to take their tight ends over ours as well. So I'm taking... Now, running backs, I'll take ours because Josh Jacobs probably isn't going to be in there. Kenyon Drake and Peyton Barber, they're going to be serviceable guys, and they actually could have decent days tomorrow since our run defense isn't particularly great. But I will take, Gaskin, Brown, and Ahmed over their guys. But, when you look at Jacoby Brissett versus Derek Carr, I'm going to have to take Derek Carr. So, unfortunately, the only part of the Dolphins offense that I would be taking in this little team mashup is our running backs. Otherwise, I would take their offensive line, their wide receivers, their tight ends, their quarterback, with Tua being out. It would be the other way, but Tua's out. So, I mean, and that's even with Derek Carr, you know, playing as good as he is. I mean, well, the fact of the matter is that through the first couple weeks, and I mean, it's not really Tua's fault, but, you know, because the offensive line is so shitty and they got him killed this past week. But performance-wise, I would actually have to take Derek Carr. All right, so real quick look at the defense. We have Emmanuel Ogbah, who's been all right. I mean, he's got a sack or two on the year, right? Davis obviously is out. Christian Wilkins has been super underwhelming. And then these other guys, Adam Butler, John Jenkins, Zach Sealer, they're all right, right? They're solid rotational guys. Let's look at, man, but their defensive, but the Raiders' defensive line, Yannick Ngakoue, Jonathan Hankins, Quentin Jefferson, Solomon Thomas, Max Crosby, Clelin Ferrell, Damian Square, Darius Finland, Carl Nassib. I mean, Ngakoue, Nassib, Crosby, those are the top three guys, but they even got some other solid players. Look, I got to keep it real with you guys, man. I'm going to take their defensive line over ours for sure. I mean, they're one of the highest pressure generating defensive lines in the league through the first couple weeks. So, and again, just wait till we get to the league standings. And I'm going to have to take their linebackers over ours as well. I will take our secondary, but they have a solid fucking secondary too. It's not like their secondary is anything to shake your head at or shake your finger at, but I will take our secondary and our special teams over theirs, but I'm going to have to take their defensive line and linebackers. But look, KJ Wright, Denzel Perryman, I don't know how to say this dude's last name, but Corey Littleton, these guys are solid guys. They're not bad linebackers, right? Markel Lee, Divine Diablo, he's, you know, a young player, but, and then their secondary, Trayvon Mullen, Casey Hayward, Trevon Morig, who I really liked as a safety coming out, Jonathan Abram, and then, you know, their backups or whatever, these two guys aren't expected to be in, because they're out, they're ruled out, but, you know, whatever, right? Doesn't really matter because they're, you know, second and third stringers. Probably wouldn't get much playing time anyway. They got a solid secondary, man. I mean, ours is good too, obviously, with Xavier Howard, although you guys know that I think Byron Jones is overrated. McCourty's solid. I like Eric Rowe. Javon Holland's been great. Brandon Jones is whatever. Nick Needham is a good player and has been coming into his own. Noah's been a fucking healthy scratch the past couple weeks and a massive disappointment. I like Trill Williams. Clayton Fedulum's mostly a special teamer. So, you know, look, man, this is going to be a tough game, but it's not impossible. The Dolphins certainly could win this game, but it's going to be tough, man. And if I'm just being honest with you guys, I don't really see it happening, especially at this point with last week's performance and, you know, with our offensive line being as shit as it is, them generating as much pressure as they do, Tua being out of the game, etc., etc. I don't think Will Fuller is going to be that impactful. So I just don't. Because I just don't think they're going to even have time for it. I mean, if they use him to his fullest potential and to how he should be used, it's to take the top off the defense and you know, cause pressure downfield, but there's almost no chance that Jacoby Brissett's going to have that time. So anyway, let's get into this. Obviously the Dolphins are 1-1. Previous game, the top of this is supposed to be game preview. Anyway, but so the Dolphins are 1-1, obviously losing to the Bills this previous week. The Raiders are now 2-0 on the season after having beaten the Ravens and the Steelers, as I mentioned. So, and real quick, just so you know, for the layout, on the far right here, these are the league standings for the Dolphins' opponent. So in this case, the Raiders. And then you have two sets of league standings here, or you know, two sets of numbers for the most part on the left. That is the Dolphins' league standings. In the middle portion is where the Dolphins stand currently, and then the far left portion is where the Dolphins were the previous week. So now when it comes to total yards, there's no previous, it just keeps going up, so there's only the one number. But for the year, the Dolphins have 475 total yards on offense. Last week they were 27th. This week they dropped down to 31st in the league. Comparatively, the Raiders have 916 total yards, which is third. And that's only because that includes the week 3 matchup between the Texans and the Panthers last night, who are the Panthers are first in the league. The Texans are second in the league, but that's because they have one more game on the Raiders, right? So there is a high probability that the Raiders could jump back up to first in the league after this game if they manage to continue doing what they've been doing. But look, yards per game, they're at 458, which is still first in the league, even with those other two teams having played a third game. The Dolphins, they went from week 1 the previous week having 259. They dropped to 237.5, going from 27th to 31st. In total passing, the Dolphins have 384. They were 27th, dropped to 30th. The Raiders have 817, which is second in the league. I think the Panthers are ahead of them currently, but that's again because they played a third game. Yards per game, the Dolphins dropped from 202 to 192, 27th to 30th. The Raiders have 408.5, which is first in the league. Total rushing, the Dolphins have 145 on the ground, dropping from 25th to 27th. The Raiders only do have 134 total, which is 30th in the league. But again, they've obviously, it's not as big a deal. Now, once Josh Jacobs gets back, I think that's going to change a bit or whatever. I think that they will have more production on the ground. And, Drake and Barber could have a good week this week against our run defense that isn't very good. So that is a possibility. But obviously, when they're putting up these other numbers, it doesn't matter quite so much. But rushing yards per game, the Dolphins had the previous week 74, dropping to 72.5. So 25th down to 27th in the league. The Raiders only have 67, of course, which is 30th. Total points, though, when you look at this, the Dolphins, through 2 games, only have 17. They went from 27th to 32nd, so we're last in the league now at this point. The Raiders have a total of 59, which is currently 9th. But per game, Dolphins dropping from 17 to 18.5, 23rd to 32nd. The Raiders are putting up 29.5, basically 30 points per game. If they put, and I got to keep it real, man. If they put up 30 points in this game, I'm pretty sure that's going to be enough to win. I don't think we're going to be able to match or exceed that, unfortunately. It sucks. It's sad to say, but look, man, I've been telling you guys this. Reason's been telling you guys this on his show, and I've been up there with him. A bunch of us have been talking about it, man. This offensive line is an Achilles heel. And for me, my 3 biggest concerns are the offensive line, the injuries and COVID situation, which has been pretty bad for this roster and for this team. I mean, Raekwon Davis is on IR. Tua's expected to probably miss at least a couple weeks, right? And then depth, man, the overall depth on this roster. And so, the offensive line is going to experiment with some of our depth. Let's see how that goes. But anyway, so like I said, let's see how it goes. Defensively, the Dolphins went from giving up 300. There's some positive here, though. As you can see, there's some green arrows for the Dolphins, which means positive progress. But, let's see what happens after we play this Raiders team. So, which is a pretty, at least through the first 2 weeks, as you can see, is a pretty high-powered offense. But anyway, so we went from giving up 393 down to 353.5, which was 17th up to 15th. The Raiders are right behind us, 1 spot at 368.5 at 16th. Passing yards per game, we were giving up 281, dropped to 230. That took us from 17th up to 8th place in the league. The Raiders are at 16th with 265 through the air on average, giving it up. Obviously, this is defensively. Rushing yards per game, the Dolphins unfortunately went the wrong direction in this statistic. We were giving up 125. We are now giving up 134. That dropped us from 18th to 28th. And this is why I'm saying there's going to be some opportunity for Drake and Barber. I mean, they're not bad running backs. And there's probably going to be some opportunity for him. So, And the Raiders are, you know, as with the rest of their stats, I mean, they're 16th in yards per game, passing yards and rushing yards per game. They're giving up 114. But points per game, here's a pretty major difference. The Dolphins went from 16 points to 25.5 points per game, obviously because of the demolishing that we took by the Bills this past week. Going in the wrong direction, we were 8th, drops us down to 20th. They are giving up 22 points per game, which is 11th in the league. So obviously doing a lot better than us through the first couple. Takeaways, we went from having 2 to 4, 9th to 7th. They have 3, which is 13th. Again, for context, early portion of the year, there's going to be a lot of grouping for these particular stats right here, but it will, you know, get more clear as we go on. Interceptions, we went from having 0 to 1, 24th to 20th. They have 1, and they fall on the list at 19th. Fumbles, we went from 2 to 3, 4th to 1st, and they have 2, which is 6. So, like I said, I mean, you know, anyway, it is what it is right now. It's going to get more clear as the year goes on and there becomes, you know, finer lines divided between these teams. Anyway, sacks, we went from 1 to 2 on the season, 27th to 30th. Unfortunately, that dropped us. You know, we only have 2 on the year. We got 1 in week 1. We got 1 in week 2. But, you know, that takes us from, you know, it's not on pace to move up. So we dropped 3 spots, unfortunately. They have 5 on the season, which is 12th. Passes defense, though, we did move up there. We had 5. We went up to 12, so that was a pretty big jump from 12th to 4th. And they have 9 on the season, which is 14th. So there's the league standings for both teams. Now, this is the performance of each team in their previous game. This is the Dolphins on the left versus the Bills, and this is the Raiders on the right versus the Steelers. So obviously we didn't score any points in our game against the Bills. They scored 26. We had 216 yards total versus the Bills. They put up 425 on that Steelers defense, right? That super tough Steelers defense. We had 145 passing yards. They had 373. We beat them at least in rushing, our 71 to 52, but they obviously more than doubled our yards per play. They're 6.6 to our 3.1. We had 2 fumbles and 1 interception. They didn't have any of those, so they obviously beat us in the turnover battle there. We did beat them in third down percentage, though, our 44 to their 38. Even though we had the ball for 31 minutes and 34 seconds, they still managed to win that category with 34-22, and they obviously beat us in penalties. We had 9, they had 5. So a quick comparison of quarterbacks. Obviously, I didn't put Tua on this list because he only had 4 throws, only completed 1 of them, and he was in there for like 10 plays because he got sacked twice and then the broken ribs, obviously. But Jacoby Brissett was 60% for 169 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 59.3. Obviously, a lot of that was because of the fact that the offensive line was just complete garbage. Every single one of them was a turnstile. They were committing penalties, just all kinds of problems, communication issues, etc., which I told you guys was going to be an issue for this offensive line. Dieter hasn't proven himself as a center to be able to handle those things. Add in crowd noise, etc. I told you guys this was going to be an issue. Derek Carr, though, and then look, I mean, if he puts up, we cannot let him have a performance like this or we're going to lose, man. 75.7% completion percentage, 382 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 126.2 passer rating. So listen, I went super vanilla with my keys to victory in this game. And that's because we're going up against a super tough team and because of the performance that we put on tape last week. And because these were things that I was concerned about and they became reality. So look, man, we just need to have at least, if we have any hope to win this game offensively, we have to have at least adequate offensive line play. The play calling has to be significantly better. I mean, that was again another one of the massive failings last week is the play calling was atrocious. At the beginning of the game, we started off with a couple plays that we literally ran the exact same play the previous week. I mean, why would you think that that's a good idea? The same concepts, maybe, sure. But the exact same play, I mean, it's outrageous. Anyway, so play calling has to step way the fuck up. And then no costly mistakes, penalties, or turnovers, which they obviously didn't live up to that last week, so we'll see how that turns out. Defensively, stop the run, then contain Carr in this passing game, and then create turnovers. If the Dolphins are going to have any chance in hell of winning this game, they just need to play sound, fundamental football, man. All right. Prediction. So, like I said, man, if I'm keeping it completely 100 with you guys, I would have to go with my instincts and the logic and the data and say that this is going to be a loss. But look, I did change it. This was going to be, this was one of the wins that they earned from me. And I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna go out on a branch. I'm gonna call it a pretty, relatively low scoring game. And I'm going to call it a narrow victory for the Dolphins, 23-21. I'm going to give them a chance, man. I'm going to give them a chance. They proved me wrong in week 1, and so I'm going to give them an opportunity to prove me right here. I hope that they don't prove me wrong, but, if I'm going based off of my gut, my instinct, my logic, and the data, it's probably going to go the other way, and there is a possibility that it's even a relatively lopsided game. I hope that's not the case, and like I said, I'm going to go out on the limb. I'm going to give them an opportunity. I'm going to give them an opportunity, and I'm going to predict a slim Dolphins victory, 23-21. Because like I said, if they can at least play some sound fundamental football and don't shoot themselves in the foot constantly, if that offensive line is not a complete fucking Swiss cheese turnstile offensive line, and we can get some offensive production, if the play calling's better, if they at least take points when they're given the opportunity instead of going for it constantly on 4th down, right, etc., and that's part of the play calling, then, there is some chance with this defense that they could, squeak it out. So I'm going to give them that chance. Please don't prove me wrong. Please don't prove me wrong. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. Of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I'm out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.